Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Riskin, and welcome to today's webinar on BlackLine. And we're going to cover how it can automate your balance sheet reconciliations and your bank reconciliations. Just a few housekeeping items. Everyone is muted just to make sure we avoid the dog barking, the leaf blowers, that kind of stuff. But if you do have a question, feel free to enter it into the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. Time permitting, we'll answer it, or at a minimum, we could always get back to you afterwards. Now, we know some are here for educational purposes, and some may be more actively investigating solutions for your month-end close challenges. But either way, we'll reach out to you for a 15-minute chat afterwards and hope you have a few minutes to spend with us. Just a little bit about me. So I'm a former accountant that spent the last 20 years or so in the financial system space. Managing systems like ERP or financial planning systems. So I've seen all the work that takes place in accounting and the tight deadlines, and I've seen the repetition of that work. And I'm really happy to be sharing BlackLine with you today. It's a product that can make a really big difference in the life of an accountant and the companies that they work for. Just a little bit about BlackLine. So BlackLine's a company that creates software for accountants. It's all that they do. Almost all their time and resources are spent on designing software to automate and simplify accounting processes. A lot of their employees are either former accountants or auditors, and it's really helped them to create a great product. The company's been around for a long time, but in a nutshell, they have a huge number of users, a huge customer base across the globe, and recognized as the best in the industry. So let's talk a bit about why accounting automation software is needed. So for many accounting teams, most tasks are done manually in Excel today. And these are things like reconciling bank statements and balance sheet reconciliations, or creating accrual and amortization schedules. And Excel is a great tool and helps to complete these tasks. But even with all its great features, it still has limitations. You still have to manually key in amounts and make sure formulas don't break. You got to make sure your amounts always tie back to the general ledger. And maybe most importantly, with Excel, tasks can still take a very long time to complete. So for most organizations, we find continuing to complete accounting tasks manually in Excel, it just isn't sustainable. And why isn't it sustainable? Well, it really boils down to four things: time, risk, cost, and morale. The time your team dedicates to manual tasks, it becomes a bottleneck, and it causes your month-end close to take longer and longer to complete. And it's risky to complete tasks manually in Excel because it's hard to prevent mistakes. And that can lead to inaccurate financial reports or maybe even forgetting to do key tasks. There's also a huge cost to it. Manual processes need people to do them, and FTEs are expensive. So if your company is growing or has an increase in workload, you'll have no choice but to hire and pay for more employees. And adding to all of this is the potential for low morale. Many people don't really like manual and repetitive tasks. It just kind of wears them down. So this is where BlackLine comes into play. BlackLine's built a platform that maximizes automation, and it reduces the time needed to complete your accounting tasks. Now, here's a flow chart of typical direct accounting tasks. And most people equate these tasks to things like sitting down with an Excel spreadsheet, ticking and tying line items, or reviewing a document. But there's a ton of indirect activities that goes on as part of this whole process as well. We may not think about the time spent on these indirect activities, but they quickly add up. So for example, writing and reading emails, or searching for a document, or attending status meetings. Accounting teams spend a lot of time on these types of activities as well. Now, the BlackLine solution, it's going to minimize both your direct and indirect time spent on them. So to sum it up, BlackLine increases your team's capacity to work on more value-add activities. So it automates many of your existing tasks, reducing the time your team spends on them. And when that occurs, your team gains more capacity to work on other value-add activities. So in your current world, you may have a wish list of projects and initiatives, but you don't have the time to do them. With BlackLine, you'll gain all the time you need to take on those projects and initiatives. So BlackLine itself, they have a broad set of software modules, which are shown here on this slide. And with each module, your accounting tasks become more and more automated. Now, today's demonstration will just be on the balance sheet reconciliation module and bank reconciliation module. But some of the other modules listed here, they do things like help to track your month-end close tasks and provide controls and an approval process around journal entries. And if you want to learn more about these other modules, feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to walk you through them. All right, so let's get to the fun stuff. Let's jump into the balance sheet reconciliation module. Now, one of the great things about it is how much time it's going to save you each month. For a lot of customers, before they implemented this system, they spent 1 to 2 weeks reconciling accounts, and that's with more than one accountant. And the main reason the reconciliations took so much time was because it was manual and done in Excel. But after they implemented BlackLine, many customers reduced their time spent on reconciliations by over 50%. So I want to show you some of those main time-saving features for account recs. And to do so, I created this demonstration video that walks you through some examples in the software. And I use a video here because it allows me to use graphical annotations like arrows and boxes. And it really just helps to explain and show how the software works. All right, so let's see the account reconciliation module in action. This is a demonstration of the balance sheet reconciliation module in BlackLine. So to set the stage, this is my demonstration environment. I have 19 accounts set up in it. I use a small number of accounts and a small dollar amount because it's usually easier for people new to BlackLine to follow. But note that the system can easily handle tens of thousands of accounts with millions and billions of dollars if that's what your balance sheet looks like. This is what my reconciliations look like after all have been completed for January 2022. You'll see one record for each account with some key information. You have the GL account, GL description, and GL balance. You got the preparer, approver, and date they signed off. And you have the reconciliation status, which in this case all are reviewed, which means they're all completed. Now, if I change this month to February 2022, notice that all the GL balances are 0. This is what my reconciliations look like before any February journal entries are posted in my ERP system. I'm going to start the demonstration at this point in time. So the first thing I'll do is import February's trial balance, accounts receivable open sales invoices, and accounts payable open payable invoices. Now in a regular implementation, these are automatically imported into the system on a scheduled basis, but I'm manually uploading them now just so you can see how it works. Here's my upload files. You can see the GL account and other segments and the GL balance over here. And on this tab is my AR open sales invoices and my AP open payable invoices. And now I'll import the files into BlackLine. Okay, everything was imported and looks good. Let's go back to the reconciliation screen. Notice how all the GL balances for each reconciliation is updated. Now, compare this to how you may be doing it today. You could be running a balance sheet report, and for each account rec, you have a spreadsheet, and you're keying in the GL balances into every single spreadsheet. With BlackLine, you don't have to do that manual work anymore, saving you all that time. Also, GL balances are updated on a scheduled basis throughout the month. So if a GL balance in your ERP system changes after you completed a rec, the GL balance in the reconciliation changes as well. The system also sends an email notification and flags the rec as not completed. In your current world, someone spends time verifying the balances in each spreadsheet still tie out to the ERP system throughout the month. And when a balance changes, you have to manually update the Excel file and notify others that the rec must be redone. With BlackLine, all that manual work goes away. Another important feature that saves a ton of time is BlackLine's auto certification rules. These rules actually allow the system to complete a reconciliation if it meets certain criteria. So the system does all the work and you don't have to spend a single second on the rec. Now, on average, BlackLine's clients use the auto certification rules to complete 58% of their recs. So these companies eliminated all time spent completing over half of their reconciliations. It's a huge time saver for them. So this slide shows all the auto certification rules that come with the system. Some of the common ones are balance is 0 and no activity. So if your account has a GL balance of 0 and no journal entries were posted in the month, the system marks that rec as complete. Another one is the subledger match rule. The system imports your ERP subledger detail and GL balances, kind of like what we saw just a few minutes ago. Then it compares the amounts, and if they're the same, it's going to mark the rec as complete for you. A third one is the amortizable prepaid rule. So for your prepaid account recs, you create your prepaid schedule within the system. The system rolls forward the schedule each month and compares it to the GL balance. If the amounts are the same, the system marks that rec as complete. Now, I'm not going to go through all the rules in this slide, but I just wanted to stress what a big time saver this is. The system does all that work of reconciling these accounts for you. So you don't need to spend any time at all working on or completing that rec. All the time your team spends reconciling those accounts goes away with BlackLine. So let's see how the auto certification rules work by looking at a few February recs the system completed using this method. So remember, this is what our recs look like after the February trial balance and subledger details were loaded. Each time the trial balance is loaded, it triggers the auto certification rules to check for any accounts that can be auto certified. Notice the status field and how many of the recs are system certified. This means that after I loaded the trial balance, the account met the criteria for one of the auto certification rules, and the system marked that rec as complete. So let's take a look at a few examples so you could see exactly how this works. Let's start off with the prepaid taxes account. For this account, this top section is the prepaid schedule. Now, I created the schedule in January with 2 items, and the system rolled it forward to determine February's schedule balance. Now, I just used 2 items because it's easier to follow in the demo, but prepaid schedules can hold a lot more items than this, and each item can be amortized across any date range you specify. The system also imported the GL balance, which is located in this section here. And lastly, the system compared the GL balance to the prepaid schedule balance, and because they match, marked the reconciliation as complete. This section up here tells me the auto certification rule the system used. So let's take a look at another example. Let's look at the accounts payable rec. The top section shows all the open payable invoices that make up the payables balance. And remember, that's what I imported from the ERP system. The imported GL balance is shown down here. And the system compared the GL balance to the subledger details. And because their totals are the same, mark the reconciliation as complete. And you can see the specific auto certification rule that was used up here. Let's take a look at one last example. Let's look at one of the due to, due from accounts. This is an account that had no activity in the current month. There's no value in your accounting team spending time reconciling it because nothing changed from last month. To show you, I'm going to change the view so we can see January and February's balance side by side. Look at the GL balances for January and February. They're the same. The system compares the amounts and recognizes that they haven't changed. And that meets the criteria for this auto certification rule, so the system marks that rec as complete. So those are examples of how the system can auto certify and do all the work of completing reconciliations for you. But how about the recs that it couldn't auto certify? The system has other features that help to complete the rec faster and with more controls, especially when compared to Excel. Let's look at the employee payroll taxes payable reconciliation as an example. So this is what a partially completed rec looks like. The GL balance is populated, but none of the supporting items are entered yet. The unidentified difference, this highlights this problem by showing how much is missing from the supporting schedule, and it helps me recognize the missing items. So I'll add them now. Okay, so after I entered the supporting items, the system shows me that my supporting items match my GL balance, which is great. Now, I want to compare this month's taxes versus last month's. It's a typical review done for this type of account. In the system, it's just 2 clicks. I select January from this pick list up here, and then I set this to summarize by reference. Now, imagine if you had to do this in Excel. You'd have to find the January Excel reconciliation on your file share, open it up, put it side by side with your February file, and then do the comparison. It's just a much more time-consuming process than using this system. So I see in Department 300 a big decrease from January to February. And I know the reconciliation approver and auditor are going to ask me why such a big decrease occurred. In this example, it's due to 2 employees that left the company on January 31st. So I'm going to enter that note into the comment section here. And in the supporting document section, I'll attach the summary page of my payroll system report as backup. Now, think about how this might work in your current world today as it relates to approvers and auditors. On the note that the 2 employees left the company, you might email it to the account approver or key it in somewhere into the reconciliation spreadsheet. But your email could get buried with 100 other unread emails in the approver's inbox. Or the approver may not realize the comment exists in the spreadsheet. So they're just going to come back to you asking why the decrease occurred on the taxes. And you'll have to spend time digging up the explanation and then emailing it to them again. On the supporting documents, auditors request many of these on a regular basis. So now you got to spend a ton of time searching through your file share or your SharePoint site to find these documents. That's the time waste that we want to get away from. With BlackLine, these notes, comments, and documents are all stored in a central location. Everyone knows exactly where they're located. They're right here on the face of the rec, so everyone can find them very quickly. Think about a new employee and how challenging it is to learn where everything is stored on a file share. They'll spend even more time hunting for those notes and documents. With the system's central repository for these items, a new employee can pull requested items quickly and efficiently. Okay, so at this point, I've almost finished preparing the reconciliation. My supporting items match my GL balance. I've entered a comment and attached the supporting document. My last step is to click the Certify button down here. So 2 things happen here. First is the system sends a notification email to the approver, which is what you're seeing on the screen. Second, an audit trail record is created that I certify this reconciliation with today's date. So I don't have to spend any time pulling up my Outlook and manually crafting an email. And I don't have to spend any time updating an Excel spreadsheet that I completed this reconciliation. The system did all that work for me. Now, let's change gears and look at some of the reporting capabilities for reconciliations. The system comes with a catalog of pre-built reports and gives you the ability to customize them as needed. One report that's valuable to managers and controllers is this account reconciliation summary report. It shows the status of all balance sheet reconciliations at any point in time. So I can quickly see which recs are completed, which are in progress, and which haven't been started yet. Now, please remember I purposely kept the number of recs in my demo environment small. So that's why you're only seeing 19 on this report. So keep in mind how powerful this report is when you're managing a lot more than 19 recs. So the top section here, it visually shows me each workflow bucket and how many recs are in each. So if I hover over this bar here, it tells me 11 reconciliations have been completed by the auto certification rules. This bar over here tells me that 7 recs haven't even been started yet. And this bar over here tells me that 1 reconciliation has been prepared, but it's still waiting on approval. The bottom section shows me each reconciliation grouped by preparer. I can quickly see which accounts are completed and which are not. I can also manipulate this list to see the data how I want to see it. So I have these filter bars up here that I could use, or I can sort on any column that I wish. And as always, there's an option to export this information to Excel as well. So compare this to how you may be managing your reconciliation process today. A lot of controllers and managers hold status meetings with their accounting team or send emails to get updates on the reconciliation process. It's another example of an activity that eats away at your team's valuable time. This report here, it shows the status for every single reconciliation. You no longer need to have status meetings or send emails. All the information is available in this report. If you want an update every week, run this report every week. If you want an update twice a day, run it twice a day. The main benefit is your team doesn't have to spend a second in meetings anymore, or emailing updates, or updating Excel checklists. All the work is done for them. Okay, So that completes the account reconciliation overview. I'll jump back to the slide deck now. So let's finish up the account rec module with reviewing its key benefits. The first is that GL balances are imported from your ERP system. So BlackLine does all that work for you, and your GL balances are always accurate. The auto certification rules are a huge time saver. The system is actually completing the recs for you. The workflow feature lets users know what they're responsible for, and the system keeps an audit trail of their sign-offs. The system verifies the supporting items and GL balances are the same or within a specific tolerance that you set. You get a single location for storing recs and supporting documents, so you'll spend less time gathering them for an audit or management request. Dashboard and reports show which recs are completed and which still need to be done. And lastly, you can document step-by-step instructions for each reconciliation. So if a preparer leaves your company or is out on PTO, a new employee can quickly pick up that workload with a very short learning curve. Okay, so that completes the overview of the balance sheet reconciliation module. Now let's jump to the transaction matching module, which is used to automate bank reconciliations. Now, when we're talking about transaction matching, we're talking about matching records from one data source to another. And again, the most common example is a bank rec. And to help explain the transaction matching module, let's look at a sample bank reconciliation. This here is how most companies do it today in Excel. They take the general ledger and bank data, dump them out to an Excel file, put them side by side, and then match the records one by one. So I got check number 1791 for $467,000 on my bank statement. Let me go find it on my general ledger. When I find it, I either cross it off or I change it to a color. Now, this is how it's done in BlackLine. On a scheduled basis, your bank and journal entry transactions are imported into BlackLine, and it runs the files through its matching engine to compare and match records from both files. Records that are successfully matched are put into the matches bucket, which you're seeing here in the upper right-hand corner. And records not successfully matched go into the exceptions bucket, where a user can research and manually match the records. It's really as simple as that. And the benefits are huge for your bank reconciliations or any other matching reconciliations you do, because all that time you spend manually matching in Excel, it goes away. The system does all that matching for you. And with the time savings, you'll have more time to research exceptions instead of putting all your efforts into just finding them. And the system can schedule and complete these recs daily or weekly. So if an issue occurs in the middle of the month, like a deposit hitting the bank with an incorrect amount, you can address it on that day instead of waiting till month end. All right, so let's take a look at an example in the software. Here's a video that shows how a bank rec is completed. This is a demonstration of the transaction matching module. I'll start off showing a bank reconciliation because it's something all accounting teams are familiar with. Here's the Excel data set I'll use for this demo and match within BlackLine. The left are bank transactions, and the right are the general ledger transactions. Now, I'm only using a handful of transactions here because it's easier to follow in the demo. But the system can easily match thousands or even millions of records if that's what exists in your systems. Now, within these files, different types of matching scenarios exist. And I use these in the demonstration to give you a feel of how powerful BlackLine's matching capability is. Some of your ERP systems may have matching functionality, but rarely are they as robust as BlackLine's. So whatever match rate you're getting with your ERP system today, it's likely to significantly increase with BlackLine's capabilities. So let's jump into the software. The first thing I'll do is import the Excel file with the bank transactions and the Excel file with the GL transactions. Now, in a regular implementation, these are imported on a scheduled basis. Many customers reconcile their bank transactions daily, So the bank and GL files are automatically uploaded by the system each morning. But for this demo, I manually do it so you can see how it works. Now that the files are loaded, let's go ahead and take a look at them. This looks almost identical to the Excel file from before. The bank statement records are on the left and the general ledger transactions are on the right. Now, let's look at the different logic needed to match these records. I have some records that are a one record to one record match, some that's a one record to many records match, and some that are many records to a many records match. So that's the three different sets of rules the system uses to match these files properly. Now, I already created those rules in the system, so let's take a look at one of them now. This is the rule that matches one record from the bank statement against one record from the general ledger. It's set up so if both records have the same amount and a similar date, it will mark that record as a match. Now, there's a few things I want to stress about these matching rules. The first is this is the core feature that's going to save you a tremendous amount of time to complete your bank reconciliations or any other data files that you're matching. Because all the logic in your head that you use to match or reconcile your Excel files today is transferred into the system. And now that the system knows that logic, it can do the matching for you. So if you're spending hours or days on reconciliations and matching files in Excel, the system now can do it in seconds or minutes. Second is, these rules are super easy to maintain and update. You're seeing pick lists and checkboxes and radio buttons on the screen. So someone within your accounting team can absolutely manage these rules. You won't need any support from your IT department to do it. Okay, so I've shown you what it looks like under the hood. Now let's go ahead and have the system actually match these two files for us. This Run Now button triggers the system to match the files. It takes less than a minute for the system to do it. Now, equate this to how you may be doing this today in Excel. You're pulling up both Excel files, one on one screen and one on your other screen. You're using VLOOKUPs and XLOOKUPs formulas to try and match some of the records. You might be creating pivot tables and massaging the data to try and match many bank records to many general ledger records. Or maybe you're using your ERP system's matching tool, but it's not able to match all the records. So you still have to manually reconcile a significant amount. So whatever manual task you're doing, you're probably spending significant time doing it. So why keep spending days or weeks manually matching files when BlackLine can do it in minutes? Okay, so the system finished matching the records. Remember that all the records successfully matched go into the match bucket. They're there for research and audit purposes, but you don't have to spend a second working on them. The records that the system couldn't match go into the unmatched bucket. So let's take a look at both of these buckets. Let's start with what the matched bucket looks like. Here's the bucket of matched records. It's a full audit trail of each match, including the rule that it used. So these records here were matched by the many-to-many rule. The total of the 3 bank transactions on the left is $2,000. The total of the 2 GL transactions on the right is also $2,000. So the system marks them as a match. This is a match made by the one-to-many rule. The bank statement had 1 American Express deposit for $25,000. The general ledger had 3 journal entries, also totaling $25,000. So the system marked it as a match. And all the other matches, those were made by the 1 record to 1 record match rule. So that's what the matched records look like. Now let's look at the records the system couldn't match. So here's the bucket of unmatched records. The left side are my bank transactions that couldn't be matched, and the right is the general ledger record that couldn't be matched. So looking at this screen, it seems like the Visa journal entry on February 16th was booked for the wrong amount. It probably should have been $6,500 because that's the amount that hit the bank. And the bank and the Amex fees, they probably need to get booked to the GL. So once those journal entries are posted into the ERP system, they'll import into BlackLine, and then they'll get matched with the remaining bank statement records. So that completes the demonstration of the transaction matching module. I'll jump back to the presentation now. Okay. All right, so let's finish up the transaction matching module with reviewing its key benefits. The first one, which is the biggest one, is using its powerful matching logic to automate the entire reconciliation. The system does all that matching work for you. An audit trail is created for every matched record, so an auditor can see which match rule was used and when the records were matched. You can reconcile files daily, allowing you to address issues the day that they occur. You have the standardized matching logic, so matching reconciliations are completed the same no matter which accountant is responsible for them. And the last thing I want to mention is that some very large companies use BlackLine's matching module. Domino's Pizza and SiriusXM are 2. They use it to match millions of credit card payments each month. Now, your company might not be as big, and that's okay, because the tool is used by both small and large organizations, but it should give you a feel of just how powerful this module is. Now, keep in mind that although this module is commonly used for bank reconciliations, it can automate any scenario where you're matching records from multiple files. Note all the other listed examples of how the transaction matching module can be used, and it can actually match records from up to 3 data sources. So you can use it to reconcile your journal entries to a payroll report, or a purchase orders report to inventory received report, or even a 3-way match between your credit card statements, bank statements, and journal entries. So if you're spending significant time each month matching transactions in Excel, BlackLine can save you that time by doing all that work for you. Okay, so that completes the overview of the transaction matching module. I just wanted to finish up showing some of BlackLine's existing clients. The software is used by both big and small companies across every industry. So you can see it's a fit for almost all companies. There's also a lot of case studies available on many of them, and we can provide those to you if you'd like. Okay, and that concludes today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join today. If you do have any questions, feel free to email us at info@revelwood.com. Also, just a quick reminder, we'll be reaching out asking for a quick 15-minute introduction call. We hope that you could accept that meeting and just have a quick conversation with us. Okay, all right, well, thanks again, everyone. Appreciate it.